So here we are working through the design process, the G-O-B-R-A-D, we're at I, at implementation. And we are working on a design project that is actually a program teaching children and their families how to construct, or all the different elements that are involved in creating a garden. So this was a really interesting exercise for me to do. I'm always surprised by the design process when I'm working through it. And our brains, my brain, I suppose I should refer to myself, is firing off in all these different directions, and I have the whole big picture in my brain. I think it's awesome. But then when it comes down to actually planning out the step-by-step, how is this going to happen, the implementation process is a really great one. And I'm going to share with you, with our Grow a Lot of Food on a Little Land, how I went from this being a one-day class to becoming a 3-day class. And it happened because of this implementation part of the design project. I started looking through all the different aspects. First of all, that I had already created the outline of the program, and I had all these great things that we were going to teach: laying out the beds and the pathways, mulching, keeping the ground covered, plants that work together, and plant stacking. Oh, but wait a minute, then there was even this part right here. Before, it's like seed starting. What about that? Soil testing. And then neighborhood meeting and location. Where are we going to put this garden? And then, of course, the soil test. The second class was going to be going into that soil test and looking at site conditions, combining annual perennial plants, herbs and shrubs, and then talking about free resources. Remember when I said back in the section earlier that to plan a day, a full day of workshop or programming for children and youth, that you should focus on 3 subjects? So now we're up to 6. Actually, we're up to 9 if we really counted all of them. All right? That's a lot of information to give out. The third class is going to recap and reconnect to free resources. Good job, Penny. You're, stacking. You're going back and weaving things together. So that's great. And then also growing soil and compost and succession planning. But now we're up to number 9 class session. And then I want to be able to have time to talk about what's next. Harvesting, preserving, cooking, meal prep, medicine, and teas. It's amazing. So what I realized when I was working out my implementation plan, putting things down on paper, trying to figure all this out, is that if I really took into consideration all of these things, it was not going to be one class. It was going to be at least 3, probably 4, maybe even 5 classes. So what was the age range I was going to work with then? When I think back about developmental ages and involving families, you have to give them an idea of what it's appropriate for. So I am saying this is for older children, and when I talk to people, I would suggest that they be maybe 8 years and older, and their families, and that an adult person be with them as well. So the next part of the implementation process, this is a working base system or a chart. This helps me to think about not only what I want to teach, but all the different parts of it, the bits that I need to be able to do that. So there's time frame, like when do I actually start planning this class? Actually, when I looked back and started thinking about when I really started planning this, it was in December. And that was 4 months ago. Well, maybe 3 months ago now. So you start thinking about how all the time frame that goes back to the very beginning and what you need to have happen each time. One thing you'll notice is that the board is made so that I have these wonderful sticky notes are our friends, not just Sharpie markers and other non-toxic things, but sticky notes are great. And if you're working with other people, which I am working with other teachers, I have 2 other teaching partners on this project, it's better for me to not fill this whole thing in until we have a chance to talk, because you have to make priorities about time and place and that kind of thing. So hopefully I haven't lost you yet with some of my fast speaking words, but I want to really applaud the overall design course, the way that it's set up for you to follow through it, and also that you have an opportunity to digest this. You can take your time working through the design process so you understand the benefits of creating an implementation plan. You're going to get more feedback in the next section that comes up after this module, where you'll be looking at implementation and maintenance. So this is just an idea of how to apply an implementation plan to our gardening class, and how we start answering some questions to make sure that we're prepared when we're working with children and youth and their families, and also flexible enough to know that it's probably going to change once we're there in the space with them. But we're thinking about all kinds of things. The time needed. The distinction between these two is that we need. This is the time frame on the calendar, and this is like, these are the different things that we need to work into that calendar. How much time is needed for that? So we figure those in two separate places. When you're looking at the budget or how much money that you need for this, you think through, and you always go higher with the expenses, add more in for the expenses, add more time in. You always do it that way, then you can cut it down if you want to. The people that are involved, it's not only those that are teaching and the other roles that they're taking on, but also like planning and the outlining and all that, but also hosts and sponsors and the students and their families. So we're going to bring those bits into consideration as far as registration and whatnot goes. And then with resources, we look at both the physical and the non-physical. And the physical would be on-site resources, things that are outside, or things that you need right there nearby you when you're in a class like this. One thing I'll mention in the non-physical that kind of crosses over into the physical is that you make sure that you have permissions and that you're aware, or that there's a responsible adult for the allergies. There's always situations that arise. Everyone's allergic to bee stings and hornet stings, but some people are more sensitive. So you need to be prepared for medical emergencies with releases, liability, even videos and photography. So those are all really important. So that's kind of a broad sweeping look at the image of a implementation plan. If I couldn't do this kind of thinking process and draw at the same time, because I'm a very visual person and I love to draw, that's my preferred language. If I had to do all of this on the computer, or it just wouldn't be the same. I mean, I think I really slowed down and looked at what was really going on because I was working with my hand and drawing things out, and it made it fun for me too. So this is an implementation plan that I'll probably use with these other teachers to see that this class happens in a great way. All right, we'll see you after this section is over with.